Hi everyone, welcome to the channel. We are so glad that you are here for today's research-informed defensive lesson. Every day at Active Self-Protection, we post a real-life use of force caught on camera so that your training and your practice can be more informed. In fact, we're the only channel in the world coming at self-defense encounters from a research-informed perspective. I am your host, John Correa.
And I'm use of force expert, Stephanie Widener.
Magtech is the only freedom seed I use on the range. I personally have over 100,000 rounds downrange of Magtech, and it's unbelievably reliable, very accurate, and a great value. Pick some up for your next range trip wherever you shop for range supplies.
I don't know where this one came from. I've zoomed in on this particular angle to get us started. This guy said that he came across a domestic here, or it looks like a domestic. This guy is assaulting the lady. He said he had to get involved there. And so when he does, he hollers at the guy. You're gonna hear it in a second. He hollers at him to stop touching her or to let her go. And when he does, watch what the man does here as he does that. He is going to then advance on him and he is going to stick his hand in his pocket. And when he does stick his hand in his pocket like that, our dude is going to draw his firearm. Now, he has his daughter on the back of the motorcycle that he's riding when he does that. So he is going to draw a gun and start issuing this guy commands. We have audio from this because he's also got it on a 360 cam that he is recording with. So let's listen in and hear what happened.
Hands off of her! Get the from me! Get the from me! I have my daughter! You get away from me! Get in the car! Fuck my daughter! Right now!
Let's go. You want to get on the back of my bike? Come on, it's okay.
Don't keep walking up to me! Go. Get her out of here. Right now.
I love you, Dad.
I love you, bub.
Apparently his daughter jumped on his lady friend, significant other, I'm not sure's motorcycle, and off they went. If you go watch the original, I've linked it in the description, then he talks to his little girl and she says, I'm not scared, that was fine, I'm proud of you, Daddy. I don't know if he called the cops. I don't know if they responded to this, and I don't know what follow-ups are, but boy, do we get some lessons. All right, Stephanie, I know people ask this all the time. They're like, John, you're not the Chief Executive Officer of Active Self-Protection? Heck no, I'm not. I am the President of Active Self-Protection, and I am the Chief of Content Creation, but you run the stinking company.
Yeah, it just works best that way. You decide the vision and where we're headed, and I make us go that way. So it's two different roles and two different people doing them.
Yep, and she's awesome at it, and also a nationally recognized use of force expert, which is why she's here on Saturdays. Steph, I really think the first lesson here is to set your boundaries in advance on what you're going to get involved in and how you're willing to get involved in it. Because I certainly think, number one, it changes if you're by yourself versus if you have vulnerable family members like your little girl with you. But number two, at the end of the day, he didn't actually protect this woman because he rode off. And so if this dude's beating on her, he's going to go beat on her some more. And if he called the cops, are the cops going to think that what he did was good, sane, sober, moral, and prudent here? Are they going to let investigators get involved? And I think a lot of people don't think through this stuff. They just think, well, I'm raised in a way that I have to protect women. And I honor that heart that says, you know, I'm a protector and a provider. But this could have gone south 100 ways to Tuesday, legally, tactically. And so it's very dangerous. And I think we should think about that.
If you think about it, protecting women also includes the two women that he is with, his daughter and the other one on the motorcycle, whether that's his wife, significant other daughter, I don't know. But they deserve protection as well. And instead we stopped and inserted ourselves in a domestic violence incident, which is one of the most unpredictable and dangerous incidents you can get involved in. I guess I would maybe argue to consider that your first responsibility is to those in your closest circle. Your friends and family members are the ones that you're responsible for before God, before you can reach out and help anyone else. So perhaps the idea of getting your loved ones to safety before you can save others, getting your own oxygen mask on before you can help others, is an important thing to think through. And like John said, the time to think that through is right now while you're at your couch and your desk watching on your phone. Everything is calm and simply you can think through some of these things and decide what type of incidents you're willing to get involved in and how that changes if people are with you. Because I do honor the fact that he saw someone being victimized and hurt and wanted to intervene and help. The important thing, and we'll probably discuss discuss this quite a bit more, is how can you actually really and truly help? And did we do that in this situation?
I really think that's important. I think the smarter thing here would have been to call 911. And there are some things, though, that are so shocking to the conscience that you have to get involved, and I understand that. But here, in the end result with the end conclusion, probably smarter to just call 911 and not get personally invested, especially because you've got your little one around, and the danger there was really real. Now, he goes to draw a firearm here, and having looked earlier, Steph, at the close-in, he does that when the guy he starts reaching into his pocket. So I don't mind it from a legal perspective. And I think that, we could probably justify that in a court of law, but understand it's going to get some looks. Now, in this case, the guy is advancing on him with a hand in his pocket, but we can also say he created the jeopardy that this caused this. So that could be a problem.
I agree with you that I think that this is justified. The man is reaching his hands into his pockets, making some movements, certainly consistent with the idea of getting something to defend himself. So we could argue that if I wanted to play devil's advocate, or if I were hired to play devil's advocate, I might say, so you were concerned this man was pulling out a weapon and you didn't drive off with your child, you just continued to stay in the area and engage. Now, I think that's kind of a weakish argument time might not have allowed, but just putting that out there, that those are the kinds of things that are going to be considered and asked of you. If your goal is actually safety, is that what you're choosing here as you introduce a gun into this scenario? So again, think those things through, because this guy might have yelled thinking that would be enough to stop it and not realizing he now has to back it up and he's got his family to protect. It got really complicated really quickly.
It really did. Also, I want to talk from a tactical perspective. He is carrying his gun up front appendix. I think that's great. I think it's really good when you're riding a motorcycle. It lets you protect that gun really well. But also, he's got to draw it single-handed because he's still got his left hand on the clutch and probably still finding neutral on his bike. His guy's a motorcycle rider. I think if you're going to carry a firearm on your person as a righty, especially, you better be able to draw it one-handed, because the chances of needing to use that clutch are pretty big. Secondarily, he needs to be able to draw that gun with his motorcycle riding gloves on and use it with his motorcycle riding gloves on. And I don't think a lot of people get a lot of practice at the range, Steph. Nevertheless, even less practice with situations like they've got their motorcycle helmet on and gloves on.
Yeah, that's going to severely limit his vision. And, I live in a place where it's winter, and we could certainly have the opportunity to have to use a firearm with gloves on. And I don't like to do that and practice that way because it's difficult. It's much harder. And all the more reason that you need to do it because of that. So again, you kind of find yourselves in this circumstances that are starting to compile and make this much more difficult. Also, with the lack of dexterity and fingers and stuff, I think I would have preferred, rather than to draw directly at my target, this gentleman that was approaching, I think I would have preferred to draw to a low ready position, something like that, that would allow me to access my target very, very quickly if I needed to. But if I was still struggling and fumbling to get things together, I wouldn't have the opportunity to negligently discharge into the person advancing when I was not justified to do so.
Remember, we don't point guns at people that we are not actually shooting, because it is very dangerous. If we have a negligent discharge, it goes into the person who didn't need to shoot. It limits our vision. And if I've got a bead, if I've got my front sight on the high center chest, I can't see what he's doing with his hands. That is a big problem. So a low ready here, just depressing the muzzle down below his feet, gives me everything that I need in vision and protects me from a legal perspective. I think that would be very wise. I will say, Steph, that I did actually like, he had space and says, okay, get away from me. I don't know what the guy had in his hand when he came out of his pocket. I think if he had a gun, the guy probably needed to shoot him instead of talking to him. But if it was a knife or a bat or something like, I can't imagine it was a bat, but a knife would be my guess. So as he comes out with a knife, hey man, you get away from me. I think using the command here was really wise. And now this is what we would call an aggravated offer rather than the actual use of aggravated force. And that's much more justifiable in court. And I think that it was wise. He tells him to get the F back, and it worked, and he had the space to do so. So that was a good decision.
Yeah, and we get to see it kind of, and it illustrates kind of what you were talking about, John. When we get to see the camera angle down those sights, we can see just how obstructed his vision really is. Now the camera's not exactly in line with his eyes, so this isn't a perfect illustration, but we can't tell what this guy does or what he has in his hands once we are behind the sights there from a camera angle, because having the gun out like that rather than at a low ready incredibly obstructs your vision, makes it much more difficult to tell what's going on. So that's a great lesson if you've never seen that before, to show you exactly how difficult it can be. And from a tactical perspective, can be a real problem. If the guy did have something in his hands that was below our defender's line of sight, he might not even know it.
I totally agree. This is another one. It's an advantage of a pistol-mounted optic, because you don't look at the optic, you look through it, and you keep your eyes on the perp, and because you have a window that's bigger, you can actually see more, and the gun doesn't obscure your vision as much because you generally keep both eyes open, and therefore you're seeing through both, and rather than accommodating your view to the front sight. So I do recommend a pistol-mounted optic for most people for those reasons, but still a low-ready position is the right answer here. Now then, his daughter gets off, gets on the other bike, and then they decide to go. And so at the end of the day, he didn't actually affect any real change here. Did he stop this guy from assaulting this woman? For a second, but will that make this guy even madder? Will it make him more apt to assault her the more after he rides off? Did he call 911? Did the cops show up? Or did he realize, oh shoot, I pointed a gun at a guy and I don't want to answer to the cops for that? So I think at the end of the day, Stephanie, he didn't really make much of a change, and that makes this kind of intervention not very useful.
No, it can be one of those things that makes you feel good about yourself, but doesn't actually make a change. At the end of the video there, we see the woman that had been getting hit, grabbing and trying to placate the man that she was with, kissing him, trying to calm things down. And that's very, very typical for domestic violence victims as they try to mitigate the beating that they will most certainly receive later because of this. So she's trying to be on his side. She's trying to bring the temperature down, and it's us against them, baby, so she doesn't get beat up that much worse when she gets home. If you really want to help victims of domestic violence, and you're not just about, this is the kind of person I am and I want to make sure people see it, there are other ways to do it that are more effective. Domestic violence is a really, really complicated problem. It's really difficult to help women in this kind of danger, and the ways that do it might not get you social media views, but you might actually help a woman. And I don't think this was it. So if this is something that you really feel strongly about, that you want to protect women, you want to help them, think about ways that you can do that now and effectively help them while covering your own ass.